Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This time we're going to talk about special camera, film camera, basically a rangefinder camera from Olympus 35SBN. Okay, without further ado, let's start. Okay, welcome back again. We're gonna take a look at unique camera from the past, which is Olympus 35SBN. This camera regarded as one of more advanced camera or rangefinder camera during its time. It's equipped with 42mm f1.7 lens. It has 7 elements with 5 groups, which is quite sharp and produce brilliant color. And yes, one of its main feature is actually its auto functions. It has auto aperture and auto shutter speed, except for the ISO, of course, because the ISO is fixed. So it's quite similar with program mode in digital camera era, I guess. This camera is supposed to compete with Leica M5 and actually an M4 and M5 at the time. So yeah, it's pretty high kind of expectations. Okay, this Olympus 35 family is actually it's based on several iterations from Olympus 35 LC, LE, Olympus 35 SP, and then SBN and UC, 35 UC, and I think the last one is 35 RD. Okay, but the last one actually has less specification or lower specification than this 35 SP. I have several of them, I think including the RD, I forgot, but we're gonna take a look at the other Olympus 35 family, of course. The basic difference from this 35 SP and SBN, despite the cosmetic change, one of it is basically a larger film winding lever, and of course, and also the battery check. So this new features just add some convenience into SP 35 SP series. This camera has been produced from 1969, if not mistaken, to 1976. Okay, let's go into its features. So let's start from top to bottom, left, right, and to the front side, which is the main features. Okay, so from the top side, as usual, we can find this shutter button. It has a threaded shutter button, but I put this mushroom push button, shutter button, just to make it very convenient, very comfortable. Okay, and also lever. When I purchased this, it actually is quite decent conditions. However, this plastic lever part has been replaced by wood. So I recreate these plastic caps or using a resin 3D printer. So it's almost accurate to the real one, and it looks more original compared to wooden kind of lever handle here. And of course, there is a film indicators as usual. It's up to 36 and more, and I think it's reset when we fill up the new films or take out and fill up the new film. There's serial number here. There's a flash mount here, hot shoes, so this is triggering based on the shutter press. And also there is a programming mode in the aperture ring. Later on we're going to talk about it, and which is or make it more accurate, make it automatic actually, by adjusting the aperture based on the GN number. And also this one is the film winding lever. So basically when you if you finish your films, and then you can just wind it back into the film housing. However, this one is unable to be pulled to open up the cap because the opener is not using this one but using this lever on the side here. Okay, okay, that's the top side. As mentioned, this is the side of the left side, which is it has can you see it? It has dials. If you rotate this, indicating 400, 200, 100, actually from 25 to 800 ASA. Okay, so you have to rotate the ring. It's very difficult to rotate, but I think that's on purpose because it's not easily changed. So you have to use your kind of thumbnail, I guess, or your nail just to make it move. And it's quite difficult actually. Yeah, so it is in purpose, I guess, because you cannot easily move this dial accidentally during the shooting or something. The right side is empty, and the back side, it has the viewfinders, not that big. The viewfinder is quite small. I think it's 0.7 times magnifications. It's rangefinder type, of course. The battery check, unfortunately mine is not working anymore, so I can't. I think it's already dead. It's not light up. I think the bulb is used, not an LED at the time, so I can try to modify it using LED, but yeah, anyway, so it's probably just leave it at. But the meter is actually moving because I put a live battery, LR44. I'll talk about it later on. And then also a spot metering, okay, button. So if I press this one, it will basically give you a metering based on 6-degree angle of view. So this is quite handy to get more accurate metering on specific area on the scene. Okay, what else? I think that's why they call it SP, because that's the different versus the other Olympus 3.5 rangefinder series, because at this series, the SP series, there is a spot metering available, which is quite rare in rangefinder camera. Usually they just use weighted metering mode in general, because that's a common metering mode. But in this camera, it has a spot metering, which is quite quite different with the other rangefinder in general, even Leica series, right? So yeah, so it's a very fully featured camera. I talk about automatic later on, but this is quite a very advanced camera during its time. What else? I think that's the letterhead is quite new. I guess it's the previous owner has replaced the letterhead coverage. So this is there's a logo here, Olympus Tokyo, but I think it's a brand new compared to the original one because it's look very nice. I got quite mint condition. So to open this camera compartment, film compartment, you can just, there's a lever here or the tab. You can just pull the tab down and it's actually you can open the, so it's kind of like something like that. So you have to use your nail to open it. And this is the inside of the camera. It's very clean, quite clean for old camera. This back plate pressurizing the film into this opening, and there's film over here, and then put the top of the tab on the film inside this opening, and then just close it and you rewind it as usual. That is the inside of the camera. There's a several foam area over here and here, but it's already gone. But during my tests and usage, there's never a kind of significant leak in this camera, so it's pretty okay. Okay, so that is the back side. The bottom side, there's unique opening here. This one is the film release as usual. So once you use up all the films, you can press this one and rewind back it into the housing. Tripod mounts, battery. It's using PX625. PX625 is using mercury, so it's no longer produced. However, there's a new version of PX, modern PX basically, but I'm using this one is using LR44. So you can see I'm using a specific converter. It's a larger size for PX625 compatible battery. So this one is, oh, okay, I've lost it. So it's using kind of like a similar size. If you can see here, there's a modern versions of PX625A. So it's actually V625U. This one is from Farta. This one is really similar with this is 1.5 volt, while the LR44, I think it's 1.45 volts. So it's kind of, and also LR44 during its lifetime it will decrease its voltage, so it's not stable. So this one I think is supposed to be giving you 1.5 volt, but lesser current, I guess, until its end of its life. So you can use this one or LR44 using this converter and put it inside. Okay. Yeah, I've lost my LR44 into the floor, to the bottom, into the below the tables, I guess. I don't know where it is. Anyway, we won't be able to take a look inside the meter anyway. Anyway, so I cannot show you the meters moving. So it's actually working, still working very fine using LR44 and also using this V625U new type of PX625, or the modern version, I guess, non-mercury kind of material, of course. It's already forbid. Okay, so that is the bottom side. This is using a Seiko FLA. There's a Seiko FLA marking here, so that was quite interesting. I didn't see it before. Anyway, I didn't notice it before. So it's made in Japan as usual. That's it. So let's go in the front side. So this is the main feature of the Rangefinder camera. So this is the branding. This is, I think, this metering for the weighted metering, and this one is for the spot metering. There's a special lens inside, so there's a magnification lens inside. This one is for the opening for the rangefinder for measuring distance. And I put, if you can see, there's a small black electrical tape that I cut to cover the center, because the yellow patch is already faded. So it helps bring up the yellow patch in the rangefinder camera to be able to see and focus better. Okay, so that's how the trick is. This is the PC connectors for triggering the flash from external side beside the hot shoes. What else? Yeah, so that's the front side, and this is for your holster or your strap, holding your strap. So let's go into the main feature of this rangefinder, which is the lens. So everything in rangefinder, usually you can find it in the lens, right? So from the shutter speed, aperture, and distance, and here also the timer here. So this is everything is here. So this is the main control area for the camera itself. I'm using a UV filter here, ring 49. So if you plan to put some hood or lens hood or filter, this one is UV filter. You can use the ring 49mm ring. So let's start from the front side, which is the shutter speed. So the shutter speed, it has the B, of course, the bulb, so you can open as long as you want, and then 1 second, 1 to a second, 1 for a second, 1 8, 15, 30, 16, 125, and 250, and 500 as the highest speed in this camera. Okay, that is the speed. Okay, and there's a 30-second marking. I want a 30-second marking. This is, I think, the flash sync. So it's staying on 30 a second, so not that fast, if I'm mistaken. Okay, let me check later on. The second ring is actually the aperture. Aperture is from, as the lens as maximum 1.7, f 1.7. So it is starting from 1.7 up to f16. So that's the smallest aperture. Okay, and beside the letter A here, there's a GN or GN function. So I'll talk about it later on when we talk about the auto also. Okay, so the third ring is the distance. The minimum distance is 0.85 meters up to infinity, or this one is 2.8 feet to infinity. Okay, so that is the marking. And nicest thing here, you have a focusing tab here. If you can see, you can grab it easily for focusing. Very nice. It's quite rare. You can find it in the Hasselblad camera, usually for one of the more expensive camera, right? So this tab is already given, built in. Okay. The other thing is, now let's go into the auto function of this camera. So one of the advanced feature of this camera is auto. So it has two auto. Usually you have auto aperture, or like a shutter speed priority auto, meaning that you set the shutter speed and then the aperture will follow. But in this camera, the apertures can be set both auto, and the shutter speed is also auto. So basically it will measure the proper EV or the proper exposures, and camera will try its best to give you the right speed, the highest speed possible, and the right opening or the apertures to give you a correct exposures, right? So be careful if you're using LR44. It's kind of a bit toward low voltage, so it's kind of like over compensating, like over exposure. So you have to make it more try to compensate it using the ISO. You can compensate using the ISO by making it higher ISO, so it kind of giving you lower exposures because of the lower voltage. However, if you're using PX625 compatible, I think it should be more accurate. Of course, this is old electronic circuit, so it might have already kind of degrade, so you have to take a look yourself. Is it a correct exposure? Usually outdoor you can use Sunny 16 or your experience, just to gauge that if the auto will probably take the right exposure. Now I mentioned about the flash programming. So if you have a flash with, let's say, 40 GN, or you get number 40, so you can set the here to 40 here, and the camera, when it's putting a flash here with GN40, will try to adjust the aperture according to the distance, because I think the GN is a guide number as a relation from the aperture set and the distance, right? So it kind of like automatically calculated for you as long it is in the certain range. You can find in my website kind of a guideline from the manual where it is the electronic of this sensor of the exposure meter can adjust properly, and beyond that it definitely cannot follow, or beyond its capability to adjust properly for the GN at a given GN. So higher GN, for example, you use a powerful flash with 80 GN or guide number 80, then it has more kind capability to provide a certain aperture and this distance. I think for the camera, I think you have to use 30 as the guide for the flash. I think for the flash speed, I think so. Yeah, that's how. I forgot. I never used flash with this camera, to be honest. So yeah, so might forgot that. If I'm mistaken, I have to put it 30, and the rest will be the GN, and to just adjust the distance, the aperture will be automatic. Okay, so that is the purpose of the GN dial here. The other things to mention is because this camera meters inside is not showing aperture, instead inside the needle is showing you the EV or the exposure value. So that is definitely will scare some of the newbies or the beginners, because what is the meaning of, let's say, EV12, right? EV8 or 9 or 10 or 3 or 4 or whatever. So this camera is capable of the auto measuring, the measurement or the exposure metering is capable of measuring from, I think, 5.5 EV 5.5 until, if not mistaken, let me check here, EV 17. So it's quite bright, EV 17, almost sunny daylight. And EV 5, I think it's inside the room, but not that dark. Okay, so that is the capability of the metering itself. And the meter itself, as I mentioned, using the EV numbers. So what happened is that you have to convert that EV number into the combination of the shutter speed and aperture, right? That's how it works. Now, you must be wondering, let's say it shows EV12 inside. So how do I set EV12 here? You have to look into the table, right? So what is the combination that create EV12? The nicest thing in a camera, if you see here, there's an opening over here. You can see there's a number inside the hole. It's actually showing EV. So let's say you want speed 1 to 5, right? And then you set the aperture into, let's say, 5.6, so it shows 12. So EV12, if the meters inside, because the meters is showing the exposure as is, so there will be not link into this one, but link into the meter itself. So let's say the current scenery is EV12. So to match EV12, let's say you select 125 a second, then you have to find a right aperture, depending on this is shutter priority kind of mode. So you want to be stable with the shoot, so you want to have 1 to 125 a second. So you have to find the right aperture, right? So here it based on 5.6 f5.6, it shows EV12 inside this hole, meaning that it is matching the requirement shown in the meters, right? So for the right exposure. So that's how you work with the EV. You don't have to bring the table or calculators, because if it shows EV9, then you have just to look what speed, and let's say EV9, then meaning it's darker scenery. So let's say I put 1 to 500, and then put here, let's say, I put it lower, let's say to 1 to 5, 125 second, and I need the larger aperture to meet the darker scenery to be able to expose correctly. So I need 1.7 f1.7 with the speed, similar speed, which is 125 a second, right? So that's how you correlate the EV dial, the needle inside, into the setting of this. You can combine. Let's say I want a higher f number, meaning you close the aperture, but then you need a lower speed to match. Let's say this is 1 to 15 a second to be able to expose at 9 EV9, right? So you can combine the anything. If you want to have an aperture priority, then you have to adjust the speed accordingly, right? But if you want to maintain the shutter speed, let's say 160, because you don't want to shake camera, induce a shake, and then you have to find the right aperture, which is 2.8, give you EV9 similar exposure value. Okay, so it's quite handy, and learning about EV also, you can use this camera. Okay, I think the other function will definitely be the timer, so you can pull the timer just to the right and lock it, and then you can you have to pull the lever first, and it's moving. I think it's around 9 seconds, 8 to 9 seconds. Yeah. Okay, so it will lock. So that's how it definitely the camera features. Let me switch to microphone so you can hear its sounds. Okay, so this is the sound. This is slower speed. 1 second. There's a timer here. So you can hear the timer ticking. Okay. Okay, so that is the sound of the mechanics. If you want to hear that, oh, sorry, I didn't mention the main feature of this camera. Of course, another one is actually lens. Here, Olympus G Suico maximum aperture 1.7 with the focusing of 42 millimeters. So 42 millimeter is quite good compromise between 50 for portrait, for example, and 35 for landscape or architecture. So it's kind of in between. So I think it's supposed to be good for street and also for certain portrait, I guess. The f1.7, the higher aperture, give you a nice bokeh. And this lens with the G lettering in Zuiko Olympus, meaning it's a 7 letter in the alphabet, so it has 7 element in 5 groups, so it has a quite sharp lens, so it's quite comparable to kind of detachable lens or for a single lens reflex camera. So yeah, it's quite advanced lenses, sharp, and also producing brilliant current with, I think it used multi-coating also. You can visit my website. There's some details about the lens specification and also the camera itself. So yeah, so that is the camera itself, and I think you have seen some of the features. You can try to visit this website of mine. Here in Philosophy of Grain, you can go photo gear and analog film. You can try to find this article here, and you can translate to English if you want to. Okay, and because I'm writing in Bahasa too for me in Indonesia, but then you can yeah, perfectly translated to English, because I've checked it with Google Translate also when I create this article. So I think, yeah, what I've said is here already with some additional informations. Like this one is linked to the manual itself in bootcus.org, so it's very handy website to find all the manuals. This is the mention of the article about how to use the GN, or the guide number, on the flash automatic aperture mode. And this is the EV side, the EV needles. So it's showing EV. So you find EV9 in the middle, then you try to match the aperture and shutter speed properly to get the EV in the number inside the hole, or the opening that indicating the EV itself in the lens. Okay, so that's very convenient. And this, yeah, so using the battery, as I mentioned, but there's a new type of battery. This is the wooden handle that I mentioned, so I already replaced with almost similar with the original one. Oh yeah, I've got its camera here. Actually, I have as you can see here, I got this Olympus XZ2. So this one is the modern version, I think, for this SPN, in my opinion. Well, there are certain much more similar with one which is having a viewfinder though, but this is a compact camera, so you can take a look how big it is with the modern digital version of it. By the way, I'm using a kind of this one is auto opening, because it's also, if it's pop-up lens, so it can be, you will not lose the lens cap frequently. So yeah, this is several being already with some modifications into it. So this one is a very handy camera. I used it in many street photography. It's very useful. There's a flash here, programmable buttons around. This one is, the ring can be programmed to anything you want. It's very nice little camera. We can take a look at later opportunity. Okay, so that is the comparable modern versions, and this is some samples. This is some specification in the website. You can see here some detailed specifications, the type of light meters, the EV capability, and the working range of the auto metering. Timer is 9 seconds, viewfinder 0.7 magnifications. Yeah, so this is the special day. So it's around 600 grams, so it's not light but not that heavy. This is the lens specifications. Yeah, so that's it. And there's several links that those people have really helped me understanding this camera before. So there's a lot of great people in this link. So if you go up, let's take a look at a sample. I got a photo repository in the Flickr. So if you click this one, it will go here, and you can find my other samples on the other camera that I own and film that I've tested. And here is the Olympus. I think I only test one and using several times, but I haven't really scanned it and develop it properly. This one is already developed for me at the time using Kodak Color 200 ASA. So it's very bright red, and this is setting it without post-processing. So all of my photo here is basically directly from the scanning. So I didn't change a lot, just for cropping probably or tidying up, but that's it. But this one is showing a bit of capability inside the room with quite challenging lighting, so I still can focus properly and not shaking. This one is also, I think it's a natural lighting rather than using a light. Just testing some of the carpets, red carpets with some batik moss. This is my daughter's, oldest daughter's. I think it's a bit blur, I think. But it's quite okay. This one is not sharp. In room again, some shake here. This is me, a mirror. Yeah, so this is the camera. This one is outdoor, but under the shade is pretty sharp and definitely good rendition of color. Side lighting. This is outdoor. My Beagles. I think it's yeah, it's definitely quite okay. Side lighting again. Backlighting. So that's is a sample of this picture because I want to show it in color because I think it has quite a brilliant color kind of retention, and well, the film being used is not that highest quality, but should be showing you a modest kind of quality on the camera lens and also the film. Okay, so that's it. That's my quick review, not quick but quite a review on the Olympus 35 SPN. Okay, and hopefully you gain some knowledge, and see you on the next review.